everybody, and welcome back to the channel. First of all, I just want to bring you all up to date and apologize for my hiatus. As you've maybe noticed, these past few weeks there haven't been any new videos. Unfortunately, I was smitten by illness, and it's taken these past couple of weeks to get back on my feet and get back to being able to record. So with that said, we are diving straight back into pretty much where we left off. We have a new Parkside product we're going to be looking at here. I just want to thank you guys again for the crossing of the 1,000 subscriber benchmark. We're a couple hundred subscribers even over that, so let's keep on going as strong as ever. So today we have the ubiquitously nomenclaturized PSPP 5A1. This is pretty much an upgrade set for the plasma cutters that are already in the Parkside line, so either the PPS 40B2 as you can see there, or the Performance Series PPSK 40A1, which pretty much just has the compressor built in, so you can use it without the external compressor. Electronics wise, I'll actually do a video and try and do a comparison. Also, together with the release of this set, there is a PPS 40B3, which I assume is identical to the previous versions and just includes the pilot ignition torch, which is what this set is all about. So as you can see, it just comes in this fairly boring bag. Pilot ignition conversion set. Here it says contactless ignition for PPS 40, but we'll see it will work perfectly well with the Performance Model 2. If we take a look at some of this information here, there really is nothing to be said. So if we toss that to the side, inside the bag we have our manual, the torch set, and some accessories. So first, what really strikes us here is the connections we have on this torch set. So we have our standard gas and negative connection on this hose here. I believe this is the standard M16 by 1.5 thread that will fit both of the plasma cutter models, but interestingly enough, we have this DINS 10 through 25 sort of pigtail, which enables our pilot ignition system. So both of these plasma cutters use a high frequency start to get the arc going, and usually you have your cutting plate connected to the ground clamp. In this case, it's actually positive, and the arc is formed between the tip of the torch, or the electrode inside here, and the ground plane. But what you want to do with pilot ignition, you want to be able to fire that arc without being in close proximity to your metal workpiece, and that's what we're doing here. So we're plugging one end of this wire into our positive connection, and then we are connecting our ground clamp to this here. So pretty much what happens, this is connected to the ground clamp position, and then the ground clamp is itself connected onto this pigtail. So what this does is give a positive connection to the outer shield on the cutter. Since the internal electrode is negatively charged, we can connect a positive connection onto the outer shield, and this allows the plasma arc to be started in situ inside the torch head itself, as opposed to having to jump over down to the ground plane. So if we have a look at the manual, nothing spectacular going on here. We have some basic pictograms here showing the electrode setup, nothing much here. And as far as our technical specs go, this is pretty much all she wrote. So nothing too interesting really going on in the manual. So we do get a couple of tips included here, and as you sort of maybe have already taken a look at the tip, this differs quite a bit from the original torch that is included with both of these plasma cutters. So this is the black one that comes with the performance model, and this is the identical, just green colored one that comes with the standard PPS 40. So these torches, you can maybe make it out here, are marked PT31, and they use this style of electrodes. I should have a package of those lying here. So these are pretty much the electrodes used by the old model, and these are two-piece. So we have sort of the outer sheath in this piece, and we have our double-sided electrode here. I'll show you how that all goes together in just a second. And as you can notice with these electrodes, on the tips here, there is sort of this little gray spot that is actually a sort of little pellet of hafnium that is used to initiate the arc. And as you can see on this picture here, this little hafnium capsule just goes down maybe 1 or 2 millimeters in the tip of these electrodes. And once this is depleted, so basically the criteria for changing the electrode is once this top spot is cratered by 1.5 millimeters, you should change the electrode because it won't ignite reliably. Apparently, that's what they tell us. So as far as the electrodes on the old model, these have now changed to a different system. So when you take a look at the torch itself or the accessories, they have changed the type of electrodes that are used in the system, which is kind of annoying since you might already have a stock of the previous types. But as you'll see soon enough, this is not an insurmountable problem. So these electrodes, we have our sort of outer sheath in this shape, which is just a hollow penetration through the tip here. I believe these are 1.2 millimeter apertures. And then we have the electrode itself, which is just single-ended. It has a thread on one side, and you can see that little sort of hafnium capsule on the tip there, perhaps. So with this new system, we have our torch, we have our locking button, we have this perhaps annoying, perhaps useful finger guard, we have our trigger, and then we have our torch. So as you can see here, there's this sort of wire distance standoff so you don't bury your electrode in your workpiece. You can easily take it off. As far as disassembly and assembly goes, so the ceramic insulator just threads off here. You'll notice there is no O-ring as in the previous system, and this exposes the torch head. So we have this outer electrode that just unthreads here, and then we have the inner electrode and the compressed air conduct coming around it. As you can see, there's no replaceable ceramic insulator like there is in the old type. So those are these small ceramic rings or diffusers. There's one built in here, but it really doesn't come out, and then you can just unscrew this center electrode and replace it. So the way this torch works is that it allows you to form your plasma arc without being in contact with the workpiece. So as you can already guess, having the positive or ground clamp connection, we're actually making both the negative and the positive connection on the torch, which enables us to form the arc. So if we kind of have a look at how this should work, I just have this sort of quick graphic that we can take a look at that is sort of equivalent to the torch we've seen. So on the central electrode here, this is connected through this connection to the negative port. So we have our negative charge on the central electrode, and then we have this outer cup that is connected to the positive end through this cable that goes back up to the torch. So here we have positive, and of course on our workpiece we also have a positive connection via the ground clamp. So what happens here when we start our arc by pulling the trigger, we provide this electrical charge on both electrodes, and the current and the ions in the superheated gases shoot out here, and some cross over to this electrode, but most of them just by inertia fly out through this aperture, and you are able to ignite the plasma without being in close proximity to the workpiece that is connected via the ground clamp. Of course, without the Pilot Arc system, we just do not have this positive charge on this outer electrode, so the only time we can create this arc is when our negative electrode is in close proximity to the metal workpiece that's connected to the ground clamp. So why is this useful? Why is this important? Well, in normal operation, when you're just burning through some standard steel sheet or aluminum or whatever, there's really not much advantage to having the Pilot Arc. But when you get into something like this expanded mesh, where you have metal and then you have an air gap and then metal, or if you have some kind of painted surface or just rusty and dirty metal, you're going to have difficulty actually starting that arc in the old non-Pilot Arc system. So what we have going on here is basically just an aid for easier cutting of kind of specialty materials, but also in your day-to-day application you're going to have an aided start to cutting. So let's get our hose back in here and we can sort of prove these electrical contacts. Let me just bring in our multimeter here, set that to just conductivity mode. So if we go into just the hose connection, which is negative, and we take our other end to the positive electrode here, we should be getting some type of reading, hopefully. Oh, it's the other way around, of course. So if we take a look at our positive or ground clamp connection, that is conductive to our outer tip. And then just, to get access, we can remove our ceramic insulator and our outer electrode. So you can see here the ground clamp is conductive to this threaded area, but of course it's insulated to the inner electrode. And if we take our hose and negative connection and we probe it out to the central electrode, we have conductivity there. Of course, in the non-Pilot Arc version, we would only have conductivity from here to the central electrode, and everything else then would be insulated. So when we sort of put this back together, we can try and figure out what else we can do with this system. So these two connections are just the button to start the arc. So once we've gone through that, well, there's the question of how do we replace these consumable parts, because in the set you only have basically 2 replacement sets. Well, luckily enough, there actually is a replacement set available right away from Lidl. Unfortunately, this isn't very much publicized on the website. It still isn't showing this version. It's still showing the previous version. So you can see here, this is PPDES 18A1. The kit, it says it fits the PPS version. It will, of course, also fit the PPSK. Here we have just some information, if you can make that out. Nothing too interesting, all manufactured or imported by CNC that pretty much do all the welding and plasma cutter tools for Lidl. And if we put that back together, we have this nice box. And as we can see, we have 2 ceramic insulators, 8 of our hafnium tipped single tipped inner electrodes and 8 of these outer electrodes. These retail for about 13 euros, and they are pretty much the same sort of equivalent to the previously available electrodes for the older non-Pilot Arc cutters. So this is the PPS 4B2. There's just a smaller count of electrodes. These also retailed for 13 euros. And then we have the larger package, which is the PPS 60A1. This one sold for 16, so by value this was the better set, just with more electrodes present. Nothing too different there. Also, as far as accessories go, there is of course the sort of circle cutter that's been sold together with the plasma cutter. So this is the PPKS 50A1. There is also the older, smaller version of the circular cutter, PPKS 35B2. So this is a 50 centimeter extendable one. As you can see here, you have the sort of one bar and the extension with 2 magnets. So you can not only use it as the circular cutting system, you can also either, you know, cut along this bar, or you can actually place your torch into the holder and have your 2 magnets placed and then slide the bar linearly to do a clean cut. In the previous PPKS 35 version, you had only 1 magnet and 1 bar, and instead of 50 centimeters length, you were limited to 30 centimeters of circle radius. So with these accessories in mind, this pretty much, you know, sums up this new system. As far as the Pilot Arc functionality, certainly quite useful to be able to, you know, cut either, you know, these hollow materials, or you can have, you know, like a whole sheet, or anything that's just dirty and it's not really willing to fire an arc reliably. So there's also a bit of confusion about, you know, the different capabilities of these plasma cutters. So if we look here, I can explain sort of the difference between plasma or Pilot Arc enabled systems and the standard arc ignition functionality. So you have high frequency that is used on these tools to initiate the arc even without the Pilot Arc setup. High frequency is pretty much the cheapest and easiest thing to do. If you remember the video of the PPSK40, there is a spark gap in it and also in the other tool, and you can actually hear it and see it sparking when you're initiating the arc. Another version that is used in sort of slightly more expensive cutters or CNC enabled machines is blowback. So what happens here with the high frequency arc initiation, there's a lot of EMI, RF interference coming off that arc, and like in a CNC machine, that could mess up the driving mechanisms in the motor controls and whatnot. So what they do in blowback is that these 2 electrodes are pushed together by a spring on startup, and once the compressed air is started, it pushes those 2 electrodes apart really quickly, and this separation of the positive and negative electrodes initiates that first arc to light the whole system off. Then there's also like a capacitive arc initiation, but I think that's fairly rarely used. So you can have all these different arc initiation strategies, but that doesn't mean that the machine has Pilot Arc. So Pilot Arc is a separate thing to high frequency or blowback start. So you can have a high frequency machine without Pilot Arc, and you can add Pilot Arc on, as we've seen in this kit. So you basically just need to add just one more connection to the torch head itself to give the positive connection point up on the nozzle itself to be able to start started. So I believe that is pretty much all in this video. I will be showing some practical examples of the differences between the two systems and cutting. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I've been able to explain some of the functionality of these tools and how to upgrade them. I think this is a very good investment at only 30 euros. It will certainly improve your usability of the machine. Buying the newer PPS 40B3 version that already comes with the Pilot Arc torch pack, I think it's actually quite nice to upgrade your previous machine, especially if you have the compressor enabled one. Then you can use the cheaper and more prevalent electrodes for your standard cutting, and then really just switch over to the Pilot Arc setup when you're doing something kind of more exotic. So as far as the electrodes go, if you do not see them or have the availability to get them from Lidl, these are very much standard sort of basic Chinese setups. So the original torch that was included with both the tools, the PT31, that is the model you will search for to find the electrodes and the tips. This is what they look like, sold on Amazon or from AliExpress. Very plentiful. Just search PT31 and you will easily be able to find the tips. When you're looking for these newer tips, these go by the designation AG60 or SG-55. Also, if you search for Cut 40 or Cut 50, apparently that's one of the Chinese plasma cutter clones. They also use these tips and you will be able to find them. The electrodes are pretty much all identical. The tips here have varying diameters of the hole. I believe it's 0.8 millimeters, 1 and 1.2 millimeters. I guess that will give you a little bit of control of the plasma arc itself and some cutting precision. But if you stick to the standard 1.2 and your standard electrodes like we have in the Lidl provided set, you should be perfectly good to go. So thank you for watching this video. I do hope to see you next time. I have a whole boatload of content I am pretty much ready to record and release. So now that I'm back on scene, I will be working through that. If anyone still has some orders for the 555 timer circuit boards to increase the timeout time on the performance series of tools to 5 minutes so you don't have the sort of sleeping bug, I will be shipping those out soon. If anybody is still interested in getting some of those, do contact me at the channel email below. So again, thanks again for watching. Do subscribe if you enjoy these videos, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.